one of the most important symposium. Every year, the Fed chairman will shed some lights on the signals like interest rate, inflation, or even monetary policies. Some of the years is very, very important. For example, 1989, Alan Greenspan, the Fed chair back then, shaped the long-term inflation strategy, 2%. Rajan talked about the risk in financial system. Actually, it's an early hint of 2008 financial crisis. And 2010, we just have financial crisis. Bernanke, he gives some hints about qualitative earning. That's why whenever there's Jackson's Hole symposium coming up, expect some volatility if you are trading the market. The first topic of the Jackson Hole. At first, when I heard about this term called Jackson Hole, I thought, what is the hole? What hole you are talking about? Jackson Hole. Who is Jack? Why there's a Jackson Hole? So Jackson Hole actually is a place whereby they host all the bankers, money managers from the finance like ministries or the banking industry, the financial analysts together to talk about money. So this is one of the very big event happen in US every single year. And whenever there's this event, Fed chairman Jerome Powell, they are supposed to give some speech. And a lot of time, the speech carries some informations that will move the market. So that's why whenever there's Jackson's Hole symposium coming up, this is the event whereby a lot of traders or even some of the investors will look into to find out is there any insights that fiscal policy will move the market. So this is the thing that we will look into when we talk about Jackson Hole. It's an event where the policy speaker or even central banker all around the world will come together. We talk about their economic challenge and long-term policy challenges. So how does it start? It started in 1978. Actually, back then, the main purpose is talk about agriculture economic because Jackson Hole is at the place called Kansas City. So it's all the farmer places. So in the early days, it's just talk about like agriculture economy. But in the 1980s, they started to talk about a lot more about the global monetary policies. And this is when the events carry more weight. And these policymakers always go back to the same place to talk about money. In some of the years when Fed chairman delivered their speech, it moved the market a lot because it hints a lot of how the policymakers would move the market or change the market. And every year, the Fed chairman will shed some lights on it. And a lot of time, you look at the signals like interest rate, inflation, or even monetary policies. Something like FOMC, but this one is deliberately gathering all the different policymakers around the world, not just US. But particularly in some of the years, is very, very important. For example, in the 1989, Alan Greenspan, the Fed chair back then, shaped the long-term inflation strategy. So back then they talk about like long-term inflation strategy, 2%. So this is the key numbers that released back in 1989. Or even like in 2005, right, there's this Rajan that's talk about the risk in financial system. Actually, it's an early hint of 2008 financial crisis. And 2010, if you recall 2008, we just have financial crisis, right? In 2010, back then the Fed chairman, which is Bernanke, he gives some hints about qualitative earning. QE is like a term that is, if you think about it, right, it's like 15 years ago, really. But back then, 2010, when I was still in school, actually, QE is a very, very common term or very common things that we talk about in schools, where we talk about quantitative earning, whereby the Fed, the government printing money. So this is the place whereby Bernanke disclose or shed a bit of lights that they will be doing this QE. So if you think about it, if hindsight, when all these things or policies changes will be announced, right, in this single most important event, right, where you'll be shaping the world or changing the world, do you think it's important to listen to what Fed Chair will be sharing in this event? All right. So in 2020, Powell also shared about the average inflation targeting. So these are all things whereby in the Jackson Hole Symposium, the Fed Chair will share. And this particular year, 2025, it will happen in this Wednesday to Friday. And the Fed Chair speech will be on Friday itself. So the Friday market would have some volatility. So do expect some volatility if you are trading the market. And just to add some pointer, so in this particular year itself, it's just about labor market and transition. I think it's talking a lot more like how AI or how AI have shift in terms of like productivity and how would this change the demographic or even macroeconomic policies itself. Right. So stay tuned on Friday. We'll learn about more about how they want to change. Or maybe they'll give some light whether they would like to reduce the interest rate on September. So I think this is one of the most important symposium recent years. Okay. If you haven't followed me on YouTube, just search Google channel subscribe, follow, hit like. Thanks again for all your support. I hope all these sessions give you clarity, give you enough turbulent management, so for us to continue to keep healthy, keep happy, and hot in the market.